I'm so happy to see you all here tonight. Bienvenidos a todos. Welcome to the National Museum of Natural History. My name is Magdalena Mieri, and I'm the director of the program in Latino History and Culture, which is at the National Museum of American History, next door to this museum. It is my pleasure to present an amazing performance tonight, the John Santos Sextet. I want to welcome as well our online audiences. We're webcasting this event, and we have people all around the world watching this, particularly people in the Dominican Republic. This concert serves as the opening performance of the Cuarto Congreso Internacional Música, Identidad y Cultura en el Caribe, con el tema El Jazz desde la perspectiva caribeña. Our friends in the Dominican Republic at Centro León, in the city of the Santiago de los Caballeros, are watching and participating, y les deseo un muy buen congreso estos próximos 3 días. I particularly would like to give my thank yous. Muchísimas gracias al doctor Emilio Rafael Yumen, director del Centro León, Darío Tejeda, del Instituto Nacional de Estudios Caribeños, José Rafael Lantigua, ministro de Cultura, and of course to our supporters at the U.S. Embassy in the Dominican Republic, Embajador Izaguirre, and Catherine Cantrell, the Cultural Affairs Officer. Many of our Smithsonian museums, the Smithsonian Latino Center, and other community partners have worked to create more than a month's worth of exhibitions, displays, concerts, films, lectures, tours, and classes honoring jazz. Please visit smithsonianjazz.org to get more information and programming. I want to extend a warm thank you to our partners like the Smithsonian Latino Center, its director, who's also watching us through the webcast, Eduardo Diaz, and my colleagues Ronald Goodman and Danny Lopez. I'd also like to recognize the world-class staff of the wonderful supporters and donors of the museum, and particularly of Jazz Appreciation Month. Mark Dibner, president of the Argos Fund, our lead sponsor, the Herb Alpert Foundation, the Ella Fitzgerald Foundation, and the great support from BMI and the National Park Service. I also like to extend my gratitude to my colleagues at the National Museum of American History, Joanne Stevens, who is the mastermind behind all the programming around jazz that's going on throughout the Smithsonian and the country, and Kathleen Fallon, who produced this event tonight, and also my colleagues James Zimmerman and all the volunteers that are helping us out. This year, 2010, marks the 10th anniversary of Jazz Appreciation Month. JAM was initiated by the National Museum of American History in April 2001. The history of America cannot be told without America's music and jazz. Made in America especially is interwoven with this country's history and has become our musical gift to the world. At the end of the performance, we will entertain questions from the audience, and also will receive via email questions from the Dominican Republic. And now to our event tonight. Filosofía Caribeña, and this is going to be in John Santos' own words, is a cross-disciplinary project that aims to illuminate Afro-Latino presence, identity, and the marvelous, undeniable, and unheralded historical connections between Black and Latino communities. It is a significant work that peacefully and joyfully celebrates life, honors the elders and ancestors, human rights, liberty, love, and the resistance to colonial mentality. The Sextet stellar lineup is made up of Saul Sierra on bass, Dr. John Calloway on flute and piano, Melesio Magdaluyo on saxes, Marco Diaz on piano and trumpet, David Flores on drum set, and John Santos on percussion. And tonight, we have a special guest, singer Jerry Medina. 5-time Grammy-nominated percussionist John Santos is one of the foremost exponents of Afro-Latin music in the world today. Born in San Francisco, California, he was raised in the Puerto Rican and Cape Verdean traditions of his family, surrounded by music. He's known for his innovative use of traditional forms and instruments in combination with contemporary music, and has earned much respect and recognition as an educator, composer, and record and event producer, whose career has spanned over 35 years. John has worked with acknowledged and multi-generational masters such as Cachao, Dizzy Gillespie, Tito Puentes, Bebo Valdez, just to name a very few. John is also a member of the Latin Jazz Advisory Committee at the Smithsonian, and he's currently part of the faculty at the Jazz School Institute in Berkeley, California, and the College of San Mateo. Please join me in welcoming the John Santos Sextet.
Thank you. Hello, Washington, D.C. Un saludo cordial a la gente de la República Dominicana también. Muy fraternal. We're very honored to be here. As you know, we have an audience in Santo Domingo, not in Santo Domingo, but in the Dominican Republic at the festival that are tuned in as well, and also a webcast audience. We want to say hello to all of our friends and family, our daughters and sons, our parents, everybody who's watching. I especially would like to give a special thanks to Magdalena Mieri, who went out of her way to present us here and make sure everything was right for us. Muchas gracias. So without much further ado, we have only a short time to play for you, so we want to really jump into the music. We're going to begin with a piece from the album that will be released on May 1st. I have a few copies here that I brought with me, but it's a May 1st release called Filosofía Caribeña. This piece is called Resistencia. Thank you. Thank you very much. We want to just say briefly that jazz, as you know, is the national art form here in the United States. What I think most of us born in the United States, however, don't tend to recognize is that jazz is an Afro-Caribbean art form because of the fact that it was born in New Orleans, and New Orleans is such a major part of the Caribbean community. So we really consider jazz to be a Caribbean art form. Sure, it was born in the United States and it was developed in the United States, and we don't deny that or take anything away. But we have to acknowledge the Caribbean roots of jazz and understand why New Orleans gave birth to jazz and why jazz is played and loved and adored and part of our cultural identity in the Caribbean and throughout Latin America. And it's because of that Caribbean connection. And that has a lot to do with the inspiration behind Filosofía Caribeña. We'd like to play a piece now that has some Puerto Rican roots. It's an original composition of mine that's called No Te Hundes. And in order to really give it the Puerto Rican flavor, we're going to bring one of the greatest singers in the history of Puerto Rico to the stage, Mr. Jerry Medina. That's my idol right there. It's my idol right there. You don't even know. Jerry Medina, de Puerto Rico. Jerry will be right back with us. You know, one of the interesting things about our art form, known as jazz, that's celebrated around the world, is the particular element of improvisation that is super important in what we do. But I think, again, you know, we a lot of times fail to realize that improvisation is a very big part of the tradition of Afro-Caribbean music and of African music of West and Central African origin. That the improvisation is part of it. Improvisation in the body, in dancing, improvisation with the vocals, with singing, improvisation within the drumming is a huge part of the tradition. So it's a natural extension that jazz, which was born out of descendants from West and Central Africa, would have this type of music where improvisation is such an important thing. But improvisation, even though it's not really used in classical music from Europe, was not born with jazz, but it's certainly evolved, has a wonderful evolution in the United States and throughout the Americas in terms of evolving the art of improvisation. But improvisation is a big part of the tradition also, so we want to emphasize that. We're going to play another piece, a brand new composition that is not on the CD that's coming out May 1st in honor of International Workers' Day, but it will be on Volume 2. The album coming out in a couple weeks is called Filosofía Caribeña Volume 1. You know, the project, we got such a wonderful response around this project that it grew beyond the bounds of being able to present the music in one night or fit it on one CD, and it really has been a wonderful experience for us. So Volume 2 will come out next year, hopefully, and this is a piece that will be on Volume 2. It's called Mr. Stallings, and it's dedicated to a great colleague of ours who died 2 years ago, named Ron Stallings. He was a saxophone player who played with us for many years, a great African-American composer, saxophone player, and vocalist. And we miss him dearly, and this piece is obviously dedicated to him. It has Congolese elements, as well as some jazz waltz and some interesting things compositionally. Hope you enjoy it. Ganga, mirarelo, Ganga, míralelo, Ganga, que horas son, Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. We'd like to bring out Jerry Medina once again. Please give him a welcome. We're going to play a piece now, a very special piece, especially that we want to dedicate to the audience in the Dominican Republic. It's a piece that's dedicated to 4 sisters who were murdered by the Trujillo regime in the early 1960s, who fought very, very valiantly for freedom and for human rights in the Dominican Republic. Their name were the Hermanas Mirabal, and that's the name of this composition, Hermanas Mirabal. Estamos.
Trabajadores de la tierra, Pediré que viviremos el dicho libre, hasta siempre verdadero y soberano. Santo Domingo ni en el Caribe, pediré que viviremos el dicho libre, hasta siempre verdadero y murieron por nada. No murieron por nada.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're going to continue with a piece that we recorded a few years ago on the record called Papa Mambo. This is the title track of that record. It's called Papa Mambo. It's a piece that I wrote dedicated to one of our founding fathers of our music, which is Israel Lopez Cachao from Havana, Cuba. While they're taping the drum right there. I should probably tell you what these drums are. I know plenty of you probably know. For those of you who don't, these are Bata drums. Bata drums originate with the Yoruba nation in Nigeria, and Cuba is the only place outside of Nigeria where these drums took root and became part of the folklore. From Cuba, they spread around the world. And today you'll find people everywhere, Japan and Europe and all over the States, in every major city, studying the tradition of the Bata. It's a tradition that was used exclusively for spiritual-based music, and still the Bata drums are the sacred drums of the Yoruba religion and its offshoots in the New World, especially in Cuba. But they have what's called tambores de fundamento, meaning consecrated drums that are not made commercially like this. These are commercial drums with hardware, just like a kind of like a conga drum. A real consecrated bata is carved out of one piece of wood after asking permission of the tree and several rituals. And those drums would never be used on a stage or in a recording studio. They're used only for consecrated music for spiritual purposes. These drums, on the other hand, would never be used in a real ceremony, in a real Yoruba-based spiritual proceeding. So these are the profane drums. But the rhythms, the music, the dance, the melodies that are contained in this tradition are immense and really do a lot to inform Afro-Cuban music and Afro-American music. And I use the term America in the real sense of all of the Americas, not just the United States.
honor para los mayores. Mafere fuma bajo Chicambo, nuestro papá Mambo, Israel López Cachao, Equibaba Ocuaye, Equibaba Ocuaye.
Thank you. Magdalena, how are we doing with the time? One more song? One more song. Okay, so probably the wrong question to ask was like if we could do another song, because we have some songs that are like really long and other ones that are not quite as long. So we got like a medium one? A medium one, okay. Well, I want to, time went by very fast, as I knew that it would. We want to thank the Smithsonian, thank all of the wonderful people who work here, the staff who made it very nice for us, in particular Magdalena, and all of our friends and family who are watching from wherever they are in the world, and especially un saludo cordial, caluroso para la gente dominicana, la gente ahí en Santo Domingo, en Centro León, en la Dominica, en la República Dominicana. We are just honored. No, we can't explain to you what an honor it is for us to be able to be here and be there at the same time. It's kind of an interesting phenomenon for us. Well, my colleagues here also I owe everything to, who work very hard to put all this together. On the saxophones, Mr. Melesio Magdaluyo. On trumpet at the moment is another young lion from San Francisco Bay Area who is very talented, multi-instrumentalist, Mr. Marco Diaz. On the drum set, we have from Fresno, California originally, but from the Bay Area. Woo, caramba! Mr. David Flores. On the bass from Distrito Federal, Mexico City, and a graduate from the prestigious Berklee School of Music in Boston, Mr. Saul Sierra. And I want to especially tip my hat to Saul because he also has really contributed a great deal to this group and to this project, Filosofía Caribeña, as an arranger and composer as well.
Thank you.
On the piano is my dear old friend that our collaboration began in 1975 and it has not stopped. And he's a wonderful teacher, a legendary teacher now in the San Francisco Bay Area, and also a commissioner of art in the city of San Francisco, Dr. John Calloway. And we're very honored to have a mentor and idol and a great inspiration for us, one of our great heroes to be here on the stage with us, de Puerto Rico, Jerry Medina. Muchas gracias. So the piece we're going to close with is a piece that actually the new record closes also with this piece. The Filosofía Caribeña Volume 1 closes with this piece called Carnaval San Francisco. It's called that name because in San Francisco we have a carnaval tradition that goes back to the 70s, and it's been every year. It's an incredible, incredible experience in the street with people from every walk of life and every color and every nation together in the street, partying, and that's the real spirit of Carnaval. And that's a tradition that in the Caribbean is huge, and in Latin America is huge. One of our most uniting cultural elements is the tradition of Carnaval. Now, this particular one starts out with an introduction that is a New Orleans-style dirge. When somebody passes away in New Orleans, they carry the casket to the cemetery with a second line behind them playing some music, very profound, usually solemn music to honor the deceased. But once they come back from the cemetery, the music gets a little bit more celebratory of the life of the deceased. So that's the idea with this piece, and we choose the Cuban-style Carnaval for coming back from the cemetery. We hope you enjoy it. The short version, guys. No, that means half hour. No.
Come on, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for our band leader, John Santos.
Muchísimas gracias. Thank you. Thank you, Washington. Melesio Magdalullo, Jerry Medina, Marco Díaz, David Flores, Saúl Sierra, Dr. John Calloway. Y ustedes, muchas gracias.
Thank you. That was terrific. Absolutely amazing. And now this last part of the program, very short, is an opportunity for you to ask questions. John Santos and all the musicians has agreed to stay on. Don't leave quite yet. And so if there are questions, there is Kristen and Kathleen have microphones. Feel free to use them. Thank you. With the microphone, and we're recording this for archival purposes as well. So please, if you want to go back to your seat or leave quietly, we'd like to continue with the program. Thank you. Does anyone have a question? Please raise the hand. Wonderful. Here, Kristen. Thank you. Héctor Corporán.
It'll be online. You can watch it again.
It's on, but the data's on the board. So once we start, it'll come
You can make it.
Licenciado. Handheld next to you.
¿Ya? ¿A quién se la quiero dirigir a John Santos? Él está hablando. No sé. Oh, yeah, I'm going to ask in English. I am. Maestro Santos. Maestro. The National Association of Recording Arts and Sciences has recently decided to eliminate the Latin jazz category from the Grammy Awards. On that note, what is your take on that decision? And well, what we as consumers, as Latinos, as Latin jazz aficionados can do to help reverse that decision.
I'm really glad that you brought that up. That's a huge issue for us, obviously. That's our life, is the field of Latin jazz. We fought very hard many years ago to get Latin music recognized by the Grammys. And now, suddenly, recently, within the last 2 weeks, they very unceremoniously decided, behind closed doors, to eliminate many of the quote-unquote ethnic categories. They eliminated Hawaiian music, Zydeco music, Cajun music, certain elements of Mexican music, and they eliminated Latin jazz. And now, when we called them on that and said that's obviously a form of cultural violence, it's racism, obviously, they said, well, how could you say that? Because we also eliminated 4 categories of classical music. So they think that that's, whitewashing the other part. Of course it does not. What they're doing is they're being classist as well as racist, because what they're doing is trying to eliminate, and they eliminated. They actually did it. We're trying to get it back, which is not going to be an easy battle. But you're eliminating the categories of music that are sophisticated and that are a little complex and that are not considered by the industry to be commercial. So they're eliminating us. And we're fighting very loudly about that in New York, in Los Angeles, in Puerto Rico, in San Francisco Bay Area, everywhere. We're trying to put out the word to the press, to everybody who understands it plainly. This is a real travesty that they just suddenly. I'm a member. I'm a dues-paying member of the National Association of Recording Arts and Sciences, and they didn't ask us anything or tell us of their intentions. And their arguments are very weak. They told us that, well. They looked at how many submissions were made in that category. They said, well, you average 30 submissions. And so they decided to arbitrarily set the limit at 40. After looking at our average is 30, they said, well, there's a new rule now, and they have to have 40 submissions, and you haven't done that, so you're gone. Instead of coming to us and saying, look, it's a little low, what can you do? And there would have been 140 submissions the next year if they did that. So obviously their interest is not to be diverse, as is their mission statement. So we're doing our best to expose that type of violence, cultural violence, and what it is, and we don't agree with it, and we're not going to be quiet. Right now it's a black eye, and it's turning into a really bad public relations, 2 black eyes and bloody nose and broken teeth for them if they continue. I don't mean physically, but you know what I'm saying. If they try to let that stand, because that's a slap in the face. It's very degrading for us to have to come back like this and beg for our category back. Doesn't make sense. The general public can certainly do something, which is you can write to the to NARIS. If you Google NARIS, you're going to see all their information. And if you send letters, send emails to express your displeasure, as thousands of people already have, if they get flooded and it doesn't stop, that's what's going to make them. They're known for being stubborn and for doing stuff, they're a big money organization, and they're associated with CBS, and they're associated with the big multinational music corporations who don't like the idea of independence, like us, and independent labels getting Grammy nominations. We have 5 Grammy nominations, and we never won a Grammy, we probably never will, but it doesn't matter. The point is that it's something that is very dear to us, and it's the little bit of recognition that we can get, and they just like pulled the rug out from under us. So you can do that. If you have any other questions about it, feel free to contact me on my website, johnsantos.com. I'll be glad to forward you the link for the Latin Jazz e-group, which is really discussing it very clearly, and all the news is there. But we do need the assistance of the general public to make them realize that it was a really bad error on their part, and let them admit that. Thank you for bringing that up.
Hello. I forgot the gentleman from Puerto Rico.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
The gentleman from Puerto Rico?
Yes.
What?
Oh, you
Yes.
mean me? Oh, no.
No, I'm sorry. The others. Could you explain, please, the moña, or what you call it maybe in Puerto Rico, and what is its origins, how is it constructed, and what is its purpose?
Okay, what is the anatomy of ammonia?
That's a very interesting question. And I don't think I'm the person to really answer that. The moña, I just feel the moña when we're playing in the band, and then it's like another pie forzado, how you say that? So that then it enhances whatever is coming from the beginning, and then it sets out like a pace or a form there, so that you continue escalating in what we're doing. So that's a pretty well. I can really explain.
I think I might be able to help to clarify also. Thank you, Jerry. What is ammonia? Ammonia is akin to a shout chorus in jazz, when somebody's taking a solo and the horn players underneath the soloist play a line to lift up the energy of the soloist. That's like a shout chorus in jazz. In Latin music, we call that ammonia. And the real wonderful players, like Jerry and like these players, they create moñas on the spot. Sometimes, like for students, the moñas are written out, and the players play them, they read them. But one of the wonderful parts of this music is how the horn players will create moñas from the inspiration of the soloist. Soloist is playing and somebody gets an idea. You'll see the players doing that, whispering in each other's ear. You might think, how rude, they're talking while the guy's taking the solo. But they're really formulating a harmony and a rhythm. It has to be in clave, and it adds a kick, a real kick to the soloist and to the energy of the music. That's what the moña is. And Jerry's a master at that.
I want to add a little bit thing that just came up. Moña in Spanish too is like a hairstyle. El gallo, it's like Elvis Presley, he has this thing. So that's the moña in Spanish. So you will see, people in the band playing, and when it comes to the moña, they will look and say, and go, and that's it. Then come on with the moña. So I want to fill that in.
Yes, I think that, as I understand, culturally and historically, this is more of a male kind of music. I was wondering if there are any female instrumentalists, and what is the contribution of women?
That's a wonderful question. First of all, there are many women who play this music, but you're right. This is a music that traditionally has a very machista history. It comes from the African traditions and Espanol traditions and European traditions, and even indigenous traditions too, where it's very machista. So the women traditionally, just like in jazz groups, they were not encouraged to play this kind of music. It was not considered, like if you wouldn't want your daughter to play this kind of music. That was the mentality. But of course, things are changing. And it's not just now, it's changing. It's been changing for a long time. There are pioneering women. One of the very first, if not the first woman to play, the first group of Cuban son in the early 1930s to have a piano, that piano player was a woman. And there's women who have played important roles in the music along the line. And there have been all-women groups, of course, also, like the Grupo Anacaona is one of them, of many, many, many women's groups, again, going back to the 1930s and even earlier in Cuba and in the Americas. So, women's were not encouraged, but nowadays you go to the school programs. I know John, all these guys who teach in the public school programs can tell you there's a lot of women, a lot of young girls and women who are in there that their numbers were not so high before. Also, I can tell you from teaching percussion classes in Europe, I go to teach in Germany. I've been there about 25 times, different occasions, to teach tumbadoras and percussion. And I have to tell you that 80% of the students are women, German women, learning how to play the conga drum. So the drum has really made an interesting comeback. The drum, it represents African culture and spirituality, and it was eliminated by the colonial authorities. There was an effort to destroy the drum and all that it represents, all of the African wisdom of centuries and spiritual wisdom, all of the things that it represents. They outlawed it, but it rose again like a phoenix in the Americas. It rose, and now it's the center of a community again, an international community of people of conscience who know of the organic power of the drum, especially in this technological age, that organic power of not needing the electricity goes out, you can still play your drum and you move people with that. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
I was kind of curious. I understand the trajectory of Afro-Cuban music, say up through Miami and New York, but what was kind of like the history or the background of Afro-Cuban music in the California area, in the Bay Area? I mean, I know Cal Jada came out of San Francisco, but what was the kind of the history and the trajectory of that?
Well, San Francisco, the West Coast, has an incredible Latino population, because actually it belonged to the indigenous people, and people from the Central America were all up in that West Coast area before they were driven away. So we have a strong Central American, Mexicano presence there. Our Latino population is mostly Mexicano and Central American, Nicaragüense and Salvadoreños. Not so much Caribeño, the way it is on the East Coast, where you have a much larger degree of Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Colombianos, Venezolanos, Cubanos on the East Coast. Not so much on the West Coast. So we did grow up hearing other kinds of music, but we had a small community. My family being of Puerto Rican descent, we had a small community, but very fierce defenders of cultural traditions. So even though we didn't have a huge community of Puerto Ricans there, it seemed like we did because my family was huge, and we had incredible, music live in my grandmother's house every week. Great food, recorded music. My grandparents were professional musicians, so the first band I ever played with was my grandfather's band. So, it was like that. We had a small community, fierce though. And so, in the Puerto Rican community, there's a saying that Cuba y Puerto Rico son de un pájaro las dos alas, meaning that Cuba and Puerto Rico are two wings of the same bird. So that's a wonderful dicho, and it refers to the fact that the islands are very close, including the island where the Dominican Republic and Haiti share the island. That island also, the Antillas are united and have a very strong social and political and cultural history that is united. So we grow up with those elements without even totally realizing sometimes, like we grew up with tumbadoras and bongos and timbales, and we thought those were Puerto Rican instruments because there were Puerto Rican musicians in my grandfather's band playing them. But those are Cuban. Those are all Cuban instruments, for example. So Puerto Rico has adopted the Cuban tradition. And when we talk about Latin jazz and modern salsa, the vast majority of the elements are Cuban. But those islands have intermingled a great deal and influenced each other. And they love Puerto Rican music in Cuba and in the Dominican Republic, and they love merengue in Puerto Rico, and they love the song in Puerto Rico. And there's a lot of intermingling with culturally and blood and every which way. So in my grandfather's band, they were all Puerto Rican musicians, but they were playing a repertoire that was half Cubano. So we saw Afro-Cuban drums and we heard that music. We danced to the records and the recordings of Cortijo, and Cortijo was a great Afro-Puerto Rican band leader who was instrumental in popularizing the bomba in the dance hall and kind of reviving the most Afro-Puerto Rican music of the bomba and the plena. But he played timbales in his band, so a Cuban instrument. So we're used to that exchange and interchange, and we've had that from the beginning. Now on the West Coast, like you say, Caballeros comes out of there. A lot of Cuban groups and Puerto Rican bands from New York and from Mexico, because there were a lot of Cuban musicians in Mexico, like Perez Prado and others, who toured on the West Coast. So going back to as early as the 30s, there was a big band tradition that was modeled after the orchestras of Machito and Tito Puente and Tito Rodriguez and Jose Curbelo that were based in New York. But those groups once in a while would come out and tour in the West Coast. Now, those groups I just mentioned were not in the West Coast in the 30s, but by the end of the 40s and into the 50s, their presence was being felt. And the recordings that they made were being eaten alive on the West Coast and everywhere.